Most people think Brazil is Argentina's biggest rival in football. They're wrong. It's actually England. The hatred between these two countries runs so deep that it's not just fought on the pitch, it spills straight into the stands. English fans chant Falklands, while Argentine fans fire back with Malvinas. The reason is the Falklands War. In 1982, Argentina and England went to war over a group of islands home to just a few thousand people. Most of them were sheep farmers. The war between Argentina and England killed 649 Argentine soldiers and 255 British soldiers. 3 civilian islanders died too, exactly 16 years later at the 1998 World Cup. English footballer David Beckham gets sent off against Argentina, and the incident spirals into full-blown political tension. For weeks, it dominates the front pages of newspapers in both countries, over one moment on a football pitch. Because it was never just a red card, it was just another battlefield in the same old war. Welcome back to Ledger Theory. By the end of today's video, you'll understand why England and Argentina still despise each other to this day. Why do people from both nations still see each other as eternal enemies? This story isn't really about football. It's not about Maradona's infamous Hand of God goal in the 1986 World Cup quarter-final against England. It's not about Beckham's red card at the 98 World Cup either. This story is about a tiny island, an island both countries still claim as their own to this day. A small obscure island that would go on to inject bitter hatred and hostility into football, politics, and everyday people on both sides. That island is called the Falkland Islands. So, stay with us and subscribe for more videos. The story starts centuries earlier, back when Argentina was still under Spanish rule. Both England and Spain had jointly settled the islands. Argentina later gained independence from Spain and began claiming the Falklands as its own. But neither side ever fully let go of the islands. Over the years, small flare-ups kept breaking out over this territory. Then, in 1982, the real war began. Argentina's military government invaded the Falkland Islands, determined to claim them once and for all. England responded by sending a naval fleet nearly 8,000 miles to retake the islands. A brutal 74-day war followed. More than 900 people died. Eventually, unable to hold against Britain, Argentina surrendered. But surrender didn't end the dispute. The rivalry over that island has simmered for decades. And it still hasn't cooled even today. The hatred between the two peoples spread into football as well. 4 years after the war, the 1986 World Cup was held in Mexico, and it was at that very World Cup that Diego Maradona scored his infamous Hand of God goal, against England of course. In that match, Argentina beat England with 2 goals that are still talked about in football history today. After the game, Maradona himself said it plainly: it was revenge. And behind it all stood the mighty Falkland Islands. The Falklands sit in the South Atlantic Ocean, roughly 300 miles off the coast of Argentina. Barely anyone lives there. Even today, the total population is only a few thousand, and most of them raise sheep. Britain calls them the Falklands. Argentina calls them the Malvinas. In the early 1980s, there was no confirmed oil reserve there. No major industry either. Economically, the islands were worth almost nothing. And yet, for centuries, ownership of this land had been fiercely disputed. In the 1700s, Spain and Britain first clashed over the islands. Later, after gaining independence from Spain, Argentina staked its own claim. Meanwhile, in 1833, Britain formally took control of the islands, and held on to that control ever since. Which means, by 1982, 2 nations were arguing over a piece of land with a history stretching back more than 150 years, even though the islands themselves had almost no real value. An entire war, and everything that followed, grew out of this seemingly worthless island. Something history has rarely seen repeated anywhere else. For most of the 20th century, the Falklands dispute stayed a diplomatic issue. Argentina would occasionally raise it at the United Nations. Meanwhile, Britain simply kept administering the islands. Neither side ever prepared for war, but everything changed because of a crisis inside Argentina. In the early 1980s, Argentina was ruled by a military junta. Inflation in the country was spiraling out of control. It shot past 100%. Public trust in the government was collapsing fast. Around this time, Argentine General Leopoldo Galtieri took command of the military junta in December 1981. This same regime had already carried out the infamous Dirty War. That campaign against political dissidents killed or disappeared an estimated 10,000 to 30,000 Argentine citizens. So by 1982, Argentina's military junta faced two massive crises. 1. Rescue an economy on the brink of collapse. 2. Win back public trust in the government. Galtieri's plan was simple: take the Falklands and ride that wave of nationalist emotion to stay in power. On April 2nd, 1982, Argentine troops landed on the Falklands and took control of the islands in a single day. A government accused of making its own citizens disappear was now betting its very survival on invading one small island. Meanwhile, Britain's Prime Minister at the time was Margaret Thatcher. Her position wasn't strong either. Britain was in a recession. Unemployment had climbed past 12%. Her approval ratings were sinking. In fact, her government had been planning to withdraw HMS Endurance, the Royal Navy ship patrolling near the Falklands, as part of defence budget cuts. In other words, right as Argentina invaded the Falklands, Britain itself had been scaling back its presence in the region. Two governments on opposite sides of the Atlantic, both under intense domestic pressure. And because of that, this war became politically useful for both sides, a chance to save face at home. When Argentina launched its invasion on April 2nd, Britain responded with a naval blockade. A British fleet of more than 100 ships sailed nearly 8,000 miles to reach the South Atlantic. Fierce fighting followed. On May 2nd, the British submarine HMS Conqueror sank the Argentine warship ARA General Belgrano. 323 people died. 2 days later, Argentina struck back, hitting the British warship HMS Sheffield with an Exocet missile. 20 sailors were killed. Ground combat raged on through May and June. In freezing, wet, mountainous terrain, soldiers from both sides fought at close range. Finally, on June 14, 1982, 74 days after the invasion began, Argentina was forced to surrender. The final toll, 649 Argentine soldiers and 255 British soldiers dead, along with 3 Falkland Islanders. Britain's victory sent Thatcher's popularity soaring. She went on to win re-election in 1983. Meanwhile, Galtieri was forced to resign within days of the surrender. Argentina's military junta collapsed in under a year. By 1983, Argentina had returned to civilian rule. Everyone assumed that was the end of it, but it wasn't. This time, the war moved onto the football pitch. 4 years after the war ended, Argentina and England met in the 1986 World Cup quarter-final. And that's the moment war and football became permanently intertwined. Maradona scored twice in that match. The first in the 51st minute came off his hand. Just 4 minutes later, he carried the ball roughly 60 yards, dribbling past 5 English players to score. A goal still regarded as one of the greatest in World Cup history. Afterward, Maradona said it openly. "Beating England wasn't just football for me, it was revenge for the Malvinas." Argentina won the match 2-1 and went on to win the entire World Cup. But the thirst for revenge didn't end there. England too carried its own fire, waiting for payback. 12 years later, at the 1998 World Cup, Argentina and England faced off again. This time, English star David Beckham kicked out at Argentina's Diego Simeone and was sent off with a red card. England went on to lose the match on penalties. But the backlash against Beckham went far beyond football criticism. It spilled straight into politics. Effigies of him were burned in the streets across the country. He received death threat after death threat, because by then everyone understood. An England versus Argentina match was never just football. It was a rivalry. Of course, the Falklands dispute still hasn't been resolved, not even today. In 2013, the Falkland Islands held a referendum. 99.8% of voters chose to remain under British rule. Turnout was over 90%. And yet, Argentina's constitution still claims the Falklands as its own territory. It still raises the issue at the United Nations. Meanwhile, Britain continues to maintain a permanent military base on the islands. The war never really settled anything, it just changed battlefields. It began with a military dictatorship desperately trying to save its own political survival, while an unpopular prime minister used that very same war to build her political future. In total, 907 people lost their lives in this war. The dispute between the two nations still hasn't fully ended, so it keeps coming back, on the football pitch and in people's minds. Instead, they became eternal enemies. And in World Cup stadiums, in the stands, you can still hear echoes of that old war between the two sets of fans. This is the same war from 1982, one that still hasn't ended. It's just being fought on a football pitch now.